Last time on Tapes and Sticks.
Be like, rather than pros and cons, rather than making bold predictions, I'm going to have hopes and fears.
And now, the stunning conclusion of Tapes and Sticks.
All right, we're back. It's not 20 minutes later. It's a couple days later, so we gotta shit it and get it. We don't have a whole lot of time left, and I feel like we're talking about there's a bomb gripping you. Like, come on, we gotta get out of here. But no, I'm talking about this fucking game that's coming out that we got to talk about now. The reviews are trickling in, and it's pretty much what you expected. There's been a lot of people that I don't know what's just a review dump has happened in the last 2 days, and it's from either the shill websites, our favorites, who believe that this game is apparently the greatest thing since man on that fateful day an age ago took knife to bread. And then you have people like the legacy video game internet media, like old GamePots and IGN, you know, the ones that like to give very highly anticipated games very middling reviews to get a bunch of clicks and create controversy. You know, a bunch of people go and they look and say, well, what the fuck are they talking about? And then they look at all that and then they take it to their corporate masters and they say, hey, look at that. Look how many hits we've gotten, to unjustly justify their continued existence. So that being said, I haven't really read any of them, and I don't plan on it. I did make a concession and I caved. I played the Junin. I played the Junin bit, and I'm ashamed of myself. No, I played it after I basically had heard tell that it wasn't necessarily indicative of the final game, and it was not very spoilerific. It was just run here to there and pick up a bunch of items and ride a bird. So I did play it, and I played it with the mindset that, you know, this is not what the game is going to be like in the end. I mean, shit, it's probably going to take a long time to get to that part anyway, but I know a bunch of people have played it, and I know they're starting to trickle out the spoilers, which I managed to avoid. Hell, I haven't beaten Final Fantasy 16 yet, and I still don't know what happens in the end. You don't need the internet, kids. The last time we teased it, and this time I'm going to come through with it, having no reference for the game whatsoever. My hopes and my fears for what's to come next week. If you didn't watch the last one, where I actually reacted to the pros and cons of the Nibelheim part, go back and watch that, because you kind of get a skeleton outline of this. I'm not going to beat around the bush this time. There's not going to be a bunch of silly all around the screen, because like I said, I don't have any fucking time, and I'm not going to go through and like find gameplay to like try to expunge my hopes and fears, because A, it would defeat the purpose of the fucking video, and B, I like to enjoy things and don't want to be spoiled. Let's talk about my fears, which I alluded to last time in very succinct details, which I am now going to broaden the scope, which is what exactly my biggest fear of this game is that the scope is going to be too broad. And this might not even be a critique on this game itself. Obviously, it hasn't come out yet, except for those lucky few 100,000 that have played it already. How do I get to that? What do you guys gotta do? Who I gotta? This is more of a general critique of games in general nowadays. Maybe it's because I'm getting older. Maybe it's because I work all the time. I don't have the time my 13-year-old me did, or 34-year-old me did, who does nothing but get paid by corporate shills to play video games all day. Who I gotta? That's all I'm gonna ask. But I just don't have time. So the idea of me like having to sit down and digest a 100+ hour game is very unappealing to me nowadays. And it's not even that I like not enjoy that type of game. I do like them when I have the opportunities. I mean, as a kid, like you're playing KOTOR, right? You're playing Knights of the Old Republic. And the first time you go through, you play as a white meat babyface character, so you can like save the day and do all that stuff. And you invest a lot of time into it. But then you get to the second playthrough where it's just like, you know what? I'm going to fucking kill everybody. And then you start over and you go through the whole thing again, and you find out the little nooks and crannies of how to do the different things and not do it the same way. And it's more fun, and you get to do just another way to experience the story. and stuff. Nowadays, the idea of me like restarting Cyberpunk, starting over from a fresh fucking save, it like makes me want to vomit. I can't like convince myself to force myself to like relive the whole thing, because in my mind I've already made that story, so why would I want to go back and change it? Because then it's not the story anymore. And I think that is a lot to do with like the themes of this, of the remake trilogy as at writ large. I guess that's what it's all about, is like you're having to go in and change the way that you think about this because it's not going to be the same. But that's just the thing though, I don't want this to be some 100+ hour game that I'm going to get through knowing that I missed things that I could have done differently, or could have gotten different things, or could have done something with different characters, and then have to like go through and play the whole game again just to see them. Like the OG remake game was a lot more digestible when it came to stuff like that. Like if you wanted to, or to get the achievement to get all the different cloud dresses and shit like that, or the scene in one of the later chapters when you get to talk to one of your characters depending upon who you like the most. I kind of have the fear that they might have made this game a little bit too big, and in that case it might be a little too inaccessible, which is the irony of it being too big. It's that free will idea that you can do anything, but a lot of people choose just to do nothing, like I do on my YouTube channel for the majority of the year, which leads credence to my other fear that I have that I touched on in the last video, that whether or not the width of the hallway, if it's still a hallway or not. And playing through the demo, yeah, you can go around a lot and do a lot of different things, but there's not a whole lot to do. Go fight some stuff. There wasn't a whole lot of like side questy things you can do. And I played the Junin part a few times, and the first time I did it, like I did it in less than 20 minutes, because the game is designed to point you into a direction to go. As soon as you start, you talk to the people, you go down the hill, there's Junin. Obviously, I want to go see Junin. Go down the hill, you climb up the little windy bits, you talk to the lady, you go into the Undercity, there's a little girl, you sit down. You sit down, but whoops, we're in a boss fight, it's over. And it's like, yeah, you can deviate and go to other things, but the game doesn't lead you to that. I'm hoping that in the final game that is alleviated, because I like I said, I know it is just a demo. I know they're trying to get you to point A to point B, because there is a beginning and an end, versus the final game, which is touting that there is no fucking end. My fear in the design of the open world is that it's going to be very Disney World-ish, Disneyland-ish, where you walk in and it's like, yeah, you can do anything here. You can go anywhere. But at the same time, Disney is subliminally pointing you in directions where you need to go for crowd control purposes. So my biggest fear, other than the big world, is that you have these big open ass areas where you can go to, and then you go into a dungeon hallway. Big open area, dungeon, hallway. And then it's like the Stations of the Cross type situation, where they're taking you on the tour as opposed to you actually exploring every area. And that's not to say that that's not going to be fun, because I mean, there's a lot of games that Squeenix has come out with in the last, I don't know, 10, 15 years that have been like that. Tomb Raider was like that. Tomb Raider was a big open world, and then you go find dungeons, and it's like, yeah, this is fucking cool. But that's the thing though, is the dungeons have to be interesting. Tomb Raider, you're solving puzzles and moving shit around and looking around and exploring the same dungeons that you're trapped in. You're not just walking around picking up a couple items and treasure chests, getting to the end and fighting a boss. And speaking of like fighting bosses and fighting in general in this game, there's a lot more stuff to do. Once again, are we expanding for expansion's sake? Because there's a lot of menus I'm having to go through. It's becoming more and more evident that this is not going to be some game that you just pick up and play. And it's especially evident when you're fighting the boss in the Junin part of the demo, because if you don't know what you're doing, you're gonna get your ass whipped. I think I had Aerith, Tifa, and Cloud, and if you don't pay attention to the new stuff that they've added in, you're gonna get wrecked. And this is just on normal. It's not even like on the hard part yet. And slight incoming humble brag, I have platinumed Remake. So that means I have beaten every chapter of that game on the hardest difficulty. I don't know if I'm just out of practice or what, but there was a little bit of a learning curve. Even then, I got wrecked. And lastly, my biggest fear, which I complained about the most in the last video, are the graphics themselves. Once again, I have heard tell that the graphics that are in the demo are not indicative of the final product. Like it's an old build or whatever. They showed that last year. This has been what they've been tech demoing to people and test audiences, whatever the fuck they do. So I am a little bit more optimistic about that. I'm hopefully that there's a lot of the things that I found jarring they fixed. I don't know about the Rubber Band Man though, baby. But the thing that good graphics can't fix is pacing. And there's a lot of fucking mini games that they've shown off. There's a lot of different things that you can do. There's a lot of like logs, I'm assuming, that you have to go fill up. If the game is so big that those things take away from the story, I'm gonna get a little distracted with it, and I'm just going to be like, I'd rather just see the story. I'll do the rest of the shit later. And maybe that's what they want. Maybe I'm being led down a path, a hallway, if you will. So what are my hopes? That's just a vague. It's much more easy to be critical than it is to be hopeful, or at least talk about your hopes, because then when they don't happen, then you're critical again. Do you see the cycle? My hopes are that this game builds upon the foundations that Remake set, and they don't do it in a way that is totally off-putting to people that play the original game. Like mixing the old story with the new story, but probably at like a 75-25 tilt. That's what I'm hoping for. I may be wrong. Just give me like 80 fucking 20. 80 fucking 20. Just don't make this 20 Kingdom Hearts. And you know what I'm also hopeful for? I'm hopeful that the ending gives me the same sense that the ending of the first one gave me. I know that seems weird because like at that point in time and in that time in which we were all living in, remember? Like after I beat the game, I have that strange feeling, that pardon the pun, the hollow feeling of what the fuck is going to happen next? Now that we've introduced string theory into the equation. And looking back, that was probably one of the most cathartic points of video games that in my experience I've had since then. Really, I can't come up with anything that matches it. It's almost like an uneasy feeling. And the thing is the second act in a play is usually the most entertaining, because that's where usually the action mostly happens. And it's usually the most uneasy because typically in the second part, the bad guys win. The bad guys have to win, because then you're not going to be interested in the third part and the final part if they don't. Look at The Empire Strikes Back, Star Wars, bad guys win. Bad guys fucking win. Bad guys didn't win, you don't give a fuck about the little teddy bear people. No, this game is never going to give me the experience that I had back in the 90s. It's not. And to that matter, neither is Remake. It's going to be a new thing, which leads me to my ultimate concern / hope / whatever all-encompassing type thought is this game is always just going to be the second one. Remake is going to have a special place in people's minds and hearts regardless of its flaws for the build-up that came to it. And I'm not talking about from announcement to game. I'm talking about from PlayStation 3 tech demo before, the anticipation, the speculation, are they going to remake this game and make it modern? And that ride that we went on for a whole damn decade, through all the compilation shit, through all the sequels, through Dirge of fucking Cerberus, all that built up to this penultimate moment where we finally got what we were anticipating, what we wanted the whole time, and not the other shit. This one is only going to be the second one. And with that being said, you might as well make it the best damn second one that you've ever experienced in your life. And I think that's what tapes as a whole need at the moment. They need a journey for you to go on. And I'm not talking like one of these cookie cutter fucking hack and slash Souls-like games that you people regurgitate every 6 months. Final Fantasy is the Roman Empire of video games when you think about it, because over the entire course of the entire history of the entire series, it's going to cherry pick each and every little bit from any other genre of video games, perfect it, and then mash it into something that they have of their own formula. and in that make it better than it ever could be. Yes, they're plucking the towers from Ubisoft. Yes, they're taking the open world shit from Horizon. They're taking all of those things and putting it into a Final Fantasy game, which for the longest time carried a shit ton of weight with it. And I think we're finally back to that. And if there's one thing, baby, that gets my gift, it's one of them good Final Fantasy games. Final Fantasy Stand at it again. But you know, cutting bread's not really that impressive. I mean, it's not. You got a loaf of bread, you get a knife, you slice the fucking thing. George Collin, circa 1990 something, I think.